Okay, Parsha Tetzaveh, it says, V'natata et choshen, or mishpat, et orim v'tatumim. Okay, the pasuk comes and says in English, into the breastplate of judgment shall he place the orim and tumim, and they shall be on Aaron's heart when he comes before Hashem, and Aaron shall bear judgment on the children of Israel, on his heart constantly before Hashem. So Aaron's doing the judgment through Hashem. What's that telling us? Okay, now it says the breastplate was folded in half to form a pouch-like pocket. Into it Moses was to insert a slip of parchment containing the name of Hashem. This name was called the Urim, because it comes from the word or, light is, because it would cause the individual letters of the tribal names on the breastplate to light up. And it's called Tumim from the word Tamim, completeness. Because if read in the proper order, these luminous letters presented complete and true answers to the questions of national importance that the Kohen Gadol would ask God. Okay, now Rashi HaKadosh says on this pasuk, at the Urim ve'et Tumim hu k'tav Shem Meforash Shaya Notno B'toch Kalfei HaChoshen. We just said that. He wrote the name of God that he put in the pouch on the Choshen. Sha'al Yado Hu Me'ir Dvarav U Mitamem Et Dvarav. To that, the letters shine. Okay, so when Rashi says at the Urim ve'et Tumim, he says he writes the ineffable name to put in the Choshen, that through that it's going to shine the words. And it says, "V'migdash sheni haya choshen she'yivshar lekohen gadol liot mechusa b'gadim." In the migdash sheni, the choshen would be in a case where the kohen gadol would not be able to be lacking of clothes, of aloto Hashem lo yakbetocho, but the name was not in it. Okay, so in the first base of migdash, the name was in the Urim v'Tumim. In the second base of migdash, it wasn't. The name of Hashem was not in it. Val Shem oto aktav ukarui mishpat. And on the name of that pasuk, it's called Mishpat. It says V'sha'al lo b'mishpat ha'urim, and he asked the Mishpat of the Urim. L'chora, what it's saying is that the name, when I got Mishpat, they got it from the second bisam, I guess, L'chora, where the Hashem's name wasn't in it. That's it. Tzarich lavin. Okay, let's see what. Okay, let's read it over here. She'i efshar lekol gadol liot mechuzah b'gadim aval Tosh Hashem lo haya b'tocho. Al Shem oto aktav hu karoi mishpat shenamar v'sha'al lo mishpat ha'orim. Okay, Rashi is saying that the name Mishpat came from when the name of God wasn't on it, and it brings the pasuk from Bamidbar. Interesting. How that happened too, because that was way before the second Beis Hamikdash, right? Okay, so what's going on? So there's a few questions. Question number one. Darkos Rashi lefaresh pshuta shel mikra. Rashi came and explained the pshat of the psukim. The fizena move on a pirush kan. For this we cannot understand what it says over here. Echaya choshen b'migdash sheni. How the choshen was found in the migdash sheni. Why is Rashi telling us that? Vod mosif tam and the vashiv shel kohen. He explains the reason that the kohen is not allowed being mechusa begadim, but nonetheless the Shem Hashem was not in the Urim and Tumim in the second Beis Hamikdash. Question number two.
Welcome to traditional Judaism. Hi.
Kavanah Rashi b'kama koman lefaresh tevot katuv shehu ma'tikam. The kavanah of Rashi in many places is to explain the words in the verse the way he highlights them. Al pizeh masha kan biro. What is the connection to here when he says al shem oto katuv? In relation to that pasuk, as it says, "V'sha'al lo b'mishpat ha'urim," dimkomo b'pirush pasuk kahu. Why does he bring this pasuk, Pasha Pinchas, to explain to you? From that pasuk, we learned that it's called the Urim HaMishpat because that's how it was in the second Beis Hamikdash. Bring it from Pasha Pinchas. Okay, number three. Lo zu bilvad she'ein makom kohen. Not only that it's not his place over here, ela adra, but the opposite is true. This comes and contradicts what Rashi says before this.
Make a party and invite the Tzfat college. Okay, guys? Love you.
Imu karu choshen mishpat if it's called the Choshen Mishpat, only on this pasuk, Hare beheder katuv, if that pasuk we didn't have that pasuk, Ichsar gam be'inyano ki Choshen Mishpat, we would not have this concept called Choshen HaMishpat. V'nimtza shesh makom lomar the Mikdash Sheni, and we could say that in the Mikdash Sheni, Shelo haya az haktav betoch HaChoshen, that this ktav was not in the Choshen, the name of God, haya kohen gadol mechusar begadim, and you're going to think that the kohen gadol was mechusar begadim, opposite what Rashi says before this. The Halam Pirushosh al Mishpat Bnei Yisrael, when Rashi comes and he explains the pasuk, it says the Mishpat of the Jewish people, Rashi says the following thing: Dvarim shehen nifshatim v'nochachim al yodo im lasot davar o lo lasot, things that you can make a judgment on if you should do them or not. Ulefi midrash agada, and Rashi says according to the midrash agada, he says shachoshen mechaper al ma'avtei hadin. The choshen brings a kapara, atonement on ma'avtei hadin. How do you say it in English? Perversion of judgment. Person seeing a situation, not judging the situation correctly. So he's saying, according to the midrash, Rashi brings down that it's a mechaper on the provision of judgment. Nikra mishpat al shem slichat ha-mishpat, on the forgiveness of the mishpat. This is also a difficult thing to understand. These two pirushim Rashi says before this. Bepirzu atzma al choshen mishpat. Why does Rashi come and say it again in the verse later on where he explains what mishpat is, if we already have that in this one when we talk choshen mishpat? Number 2, in the first pirush it says the two pirushim in the opposite order in relation to what we said here. First thing he says that it's mechaper al kilkul amdin, that the choshen mishpat is able to mechaper on the kilkul amdin, the bad judgment, and afterwards it says mishpat shemevarer dvarav v'avtachato emet. What is mishpat? Is that a person says things clearly and his promises are true. Lashon birur dvarim shemefaresh umevarer dvarav. It means clarification of things, that you explain and you clarify the words. In addition to the difficulty in relation to the change in the order, that is very muduak in all details, we have to wonder on the contradiction that comes out because of this change. What does that mean? The first thing that Rashi explains, this he brings the main. When Rashi comes and explains something, the first pshat he brings is the main pshat. So the first thing is more important than the second thing. V'im ken, Chalufa said the order changes. Machlif kvi'uta pirusha ikri. So if the first place he says the first thing first, and the second place he says it's second, therefore he's saying that the first thing is not important as it was in the first place. It seems like a contradiction how he sets things up. Uma gam shelakaman hu mevi et pirusha sheni betur midrash agada. And this that he brings the second pirush as just a midrash agada, zot mercha ein pirusha derech pshat legamre, which comes and explains that in the first place he said the first pshat, and in the second place he put that as a second pshat, but then he added these are the words of the agada, the midrash, and that comes to tell you that it's not according to pshat. It's a story that comes to answer the words of the verse. Okay, so now but in the first pirush, when it says choshen mishpat, he brought it as the first ikar pirush. So he changes it. What is going on? Okay, so now we're going to explain. After the beginning of the parsha, where it explains all the details of making the choshen, it says about it while finishing off, It says, "V'nasa Aaron b'choshen mishpat al libo." Aaron will carry the choshen mishpat on his heart. Shebezeh nigmar l'chor kol yin choshen. Over here, it seems like the Torah finished discussing the inyan of the choshen. But afterwards, the verse continues, and it says, "V'natata el choshen mishpat et ha'orim v'et ha'tumim." You should put in the choshen mishpat the orim and the tumim. V'nasa Aaron et mishpat b'nei Yisrael, and Aaron will carry the mishpat b'nei Yisrael. ומזה שעניין האורים ותומים לא נכלל בפרשת החושן בין כל פרטיו אלא בא לאחריה כעניין מיוחד לעצמו. Okay, so we see something interesting. The way the Torah is written is that the laws of the Urim v'Tumim didn't come in the paragraphs where it was talking about the Choshen Mishpat, but rather the Choshen Mishpat had to finish first, and then the Torah continued talking about the Urim v'Tumim bifnei atzma, by itself, to show you that it has a special deen. It's a separate thing. It's a special quality in of itself. Muvan b'pashtut seder mikraot sha'or v'tum en chelek mima'aseh choshen atzma ala davar nosaf al etzem b'choshen. Therefore, we see that the orim v'tumim are not one with the choshen mishpat. They're really an additional thing, and then the additional thing by itself had to be placed within the choshen mishpat, but it's its own thing. Okay. Right, there's a few different Mefarshim that explain that. The Ramban brings it, explains different things, okay? V'lachen la'acharei sherashi mefaresh ha'orim v'tumim hu k'tav shem meforash shaya notno b'toch kalf v'achoshen al yado hu me'ir dvarav. So, therefore, after Rashi writes, what is the orim v'tumim? He says that they put the name of Hashem, that it was in the fold of the Choshen, and through the Urim v'Tumim specifically shined the words, because the word Urim comes to the word Or, and therefore that gave it the stones the ability to shine, to know which Shevet it's shaykh to, the question you're asking. So for this we see the Urim v'Tumim are part of the Choshen itself, which is the shleimus of the Choshen is connected in the fact that you put the Urim v'Tumim into it. But this is opposite to what the verses are coming to imply. The verse is clearly trying to tell you something in between the lines, that first talk about the Choshen, and then the concept of the Choshen ends, and then it talks about the Urim v'Tumim as its own thing, and then it's telling you that the only way for the Choshen to be in a complete level is by having the Urim v'Tumim inside of it. First telling you they're two different things, and then they're telling you they have to be together, to be one. Okay? This all has to do with the Kilkul of Mishpat. And now, Rashi comes and explains. Basically, Rashi is coming now to answer this question. The question is, the verses show that the two distinct things, separate of each other, but then the pasuk says they have to be one and the other. So Rashi comes and explains, in the second Mikdash, there was the Choshen, that even though the Kohen Gadol is not allowed having mechusar begadim, meaning he has to have all of his clothes on, but the Shem wasn't inside of it. Therefore, this comes and proves that the Urim v'Tumim is not an etzem chelik of the Choshen. The Kohen will not be lacking clothes, even at the moment when the Choshen is on him. Okay? Therefore, the Choshen by itself is its own thing, to the extent that the Kohen Gadol has to keep all the 8 garments on. But this itself needs an explanation. That through the Urim v'Tumim, it shines. Lama be'emet lo haya davar ha'me'akev b'shlimut ha'choshen, k'mo shachel ha'kav, shekol echad mehem hu prat ha'me'akev b'kalut inyan shel ha'choshen, b'frat she'urim v'Tumim heinam l'chor ha'inyan ikar b'choshen. So why is it that we don't have the Urim in the full sense in the Choshen, in the second base of Migdash, in which we know that the Kohen Gadol still has to serve b'shleimus, and it seems like the Urim v'Tumim is really such a strong part of the Choshen that you would seemingly have to have it in it, even in the second base of Migdash, for him to do his avodah in a shleimus way. Therefore Rashi comes and explains, Al Shem oto ktav hu karui mishpat. On this pasuk, it's called Mishpat, okay? Which means the pasuk in Parshat Pinchas, it's called Mishpat. What does that mean? Hainu sherak inyan ha-mishpat, the concept of Mishpat, which is something in addition to the Choshen itself, is dependent upon the Ktav, the writing, which is the name of Hashem, of the Urim V'Tumim. Aval guf v'etzam ha-Choshen, but the essential body of the Choshen, ha-beged, the clothes themselves, shalem hu gam v'lo v'tumim, it's shalem, even without the Urim V'Tumim. And the Kohen is not considered mechusar b'gadim if he doesn't have the name inside of the Choshen. But when you have the name, then it turns into Choshen HaMishpat, which means to properly make the Mishpat, you have to have the Indian of the Urim V'Tumim, which is the Indian of Hashem's name, and only when Hashem's name could come into the Choshen, then you have the Choshen HaMishpat. But without it, it's still considered that he's in a state of shlemus, and he can do the avoda, and he's not mechusa begadim. V'zui gam hatam shebetchila nitparesh b'ktuvim. This is why at the beginning we explain in the Psukim the commandment on the building of the Choshen itself with all of its details, to show you that in Shebezeh Nishlema Parshat HaChoshen Atzmo B'Shleimuto. Through this, there is completed the Parsha of the Choshen by itself in its complete sense. It's coming to explain the concept of the tachlits of the Choshen. It says, Nasa Aaron Shemot B'nei Gomer Lizikon Lifnei Hashem Tamid. Aaron will carry the names of the Jewish people on him to remember that Hashem's form always. Only after that comes the tzivui of the Urim V'Tumim, which is Choshen HaMishpet, which is something addition to the Choshen. And the concept of that is V'hayu al lev Aaron v'nasa Aaron et mishpat b'nei Yisrael. So, basically, what's the summary of the concept is that the Choshen is his own thing by itself. And if he doesn't have the Urim V'Tumim, then he's still in a state of shlemus. He's not mechutz beganim. In the first base of Mikdash, we had the Urim V'Tumim, which is the Shem of Hashem that was placed in the Choshen. In the second base of Mikdash, he didn't have it, but it didn't make him become mechutz beganim. But it doesn't have the concept called the Choshen HaMishpat until it has the name of Hashem in it. Okay, now why do you have to have the name of Hashem to make the Mishpat of Bnei Yisrael? Meaning to have Hashem before you always, it's enough to have the Choshen. But if you want to be able to do the Mishpat, carry the Mishpat of Bnei Yisrael, you need that the Choshen has the Urim V'Tumim, which is the name of Hashem inside of it. It's an interesting thing going on here.
So we just didn't have the
It didn't light up the way it did in the first basement.
But they didn't have
They had the Choshen.
but the Shem Hashem.
They didn't have Shem Hashem in the second basement. Okay?
They have a seat. They
There's
don't have the
two
seat.
purposes there for Kosher.
Yeah.
One is with the Urim V'Tumim, it's called the Mishpat
The-
HaUrim.
Right.
Rashi mentions.
Choshen HaMishpat, yeah.
So they're the king or a Navi could inquire of the Kohen to get an answer for
Right.
an issue that might be not even related
Monetary.
to the Mishpat.
Like,
By the way,
right. It could be a...
About to war should not go.
Right.
But the Iker bearing of the Choshen Mishpat is because it's mechaper on Ivos Hadin.
But, yeah.
Because the Bali didn't make a time, and Rashi goes through the whole thing up there.
Because they can make a mistake how they judge, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So there.
Right, so we're comparing two psukim where the first pasuk it says the two reasons, and the second pasuk it says it in different order. So we're going to explain now the chiluk b'nei what's going on.
You would just ask the one who give you psak without really.
Yeah.
One time you do that. And then it would be up to the Kohen, like Eli, the full story with Eli.
Yeah.
And Chana is where the words came up, Kaf, Shin, Reish, He.
Kaf, Shin, Reish.
So you can rearrange as Shikura.
Oh.
Shikura. Right. She's drunk.
Right.
Right? And she says, Lo ata adon b'davar hazeh. You're not an adon on this thing. Because Shera, I'm Shera.
Oh.
You take the letters, you rearrange, so the Kohen was supposed to see that. Rashi brings it down.
That's cool.
It's a little bit more. It's supposed he sees the letters, and he's supposed to, they're not in order necessarily.
Right.
Part of the godless is to be able to arrange them in the right order. So
That's true, yeah.
That's
That's the mishpat, because you could see one thing and you could make one judgment on it, but it's the wrong letters,
Right.
That's true. Chazak. Vehemat.
Reuben says he owes me 100 shkolim.
Yes, the
You
Urim.
would get the answer from the Urim and Tumim. You would get it.
At one time you could.
But if you didn't arrange the letters right.
No, that's why you have to ask Aaron, because he's holding the mishpat.
Right.
He held the mishpat, so that means when he did it, it was right, because
Right.
he had the name of Hashem inside of it. We're all messed up right now. You can't come to true judgment. Is not pure right now. It's ma'uvat.
But ain l'dayanim mamash ain nehem roas.
Yeah, that's true.
Dayan have what they are, like
It's
sort
a
of
Ramon,
Chacham Adif Navi. He's in certain ways using the power of the argument of Torah, and the foreshadowing and different sources. Right. Yeah.
Now, הנה בהתאם בהמשך לפירושו, הנ"ל בתחילת הפסוק. So in connection and continuation of the first pirush at the beginning of the pasuk, שמוכיח בו שעל שם אותו כתוב דאורים ותומים נקראת משפט. We learn from there that the Urim and Tumim is called mishpat. Rashi Kadosh comes and explains also in the first pirush. It says Mash katuv lahalan pasuk et mishpat bnei Israel. This that it says over there, the mishpat of bnei Israel, devar shehem nishpatim v'nochachim, things that are judged and present. Hainu the mishpat kai al urim v'tumim. The word mishpat shows on the urim v'tumim, as it says in the beginning of the pasuk. V'mitba'er ta'amo shel Rashi. And we explain the reason of Rashi that he reconciles over here. Shepirush zehu ikri. This is the main pirush. Ki rak lefi pirush zeh niten lasbir. Only according to this pirush we could explain. Bichdei leyashev hemshech haktuvim, in order to answer the continuation of psukim, that the Urim v'Tumim are themselves not the choshen, as we explained. Okay, now, Masha'in can Pirush Rashi La'ayel, but not in the case in the first Pirush Rashi when it says Choshen Mishpat, Shadayin Ein Hechrech Lefaresh Shaya Inyan the Mishpat Kalu Tumim. We couldn't say that the word Mishpat goes in the Urim Tumim. Pashut Fe Lefaresh Inyan the Mishpat Kepshuto. The word Mishpat, we could explain it according to what the simple meaning is, which is the language of Din, making the judgment. As opposed to saying it's an explanation of things. It's not the simple explanation of the word mishpat. Therefore Rashi comes and says that it's mekalkel, that's mechaper al kilkul adin, that it atones for the bad judgment. Kihu ikar pshuto shamikre al atar. That's the main explanation of the psukim over there. And only afterwards, when he brings the second pirush, he says, Davar acher, mishpat mevedarav, something to clarify your words. Amnam mitam ze'atzma, from this reason itself, shekashe lomar, that it's hard to say that the mishpat means birur dvarim, means the explanation of matters, v'shehem nishpatim v'nochim al yado, and they get settled through that. V'gam kemet she'achoshen nikah b'shen choshen mishpat, since the choshen is called the choshen ha-mishpat, Gam terem shenatno betocho et om turim. Even before you put inside of it the Urim v'Tumim, ein Rashi mistapek pirusha rishon. Rashi is not enough to explain it according to the first pirush. That he says that Mishpat b'nei Israel is the Urim v'Tumim. Mosif, he explains the second pirush that he says the choshen is called Mishpat because it's mechaper on the me'avotei hadin, the perversion of judgment, and according to this, it settles more the pirush of the word mishpat in this simple sense. Ella demachar shepirush ze kashe loholmo bepashtut hemshech ketuvim. Since this explanation is hard to connect it to the rest of the psukim that come afterwards, lachin ktav Rashi, for Rashi says, he brings this second pirush as a midrash agada. Even though the one detail is close enough to the pshat of the mikre, הרי לעומת זה אינו מתיישב בקלות הכתובים והפרשה כולה. But on the other hand, he doesn't answer the general aspects of the psukim and the parsha as a whole. Lachen matiko Rashi betur pirush sheni, therefore brings it a second pirush. According to the Shita of Rashi, it explains, even according to halacha, how the Kohen Gadol would serve in the Beit Sheni, Keshechasru or Vitumim, when they didn't have the Or Vitumim, Varimachusar Begadim, and they were lacking V'harei, and therefore maybe you're going to think he's Mechusar Begadim, because the Chisaran of the Or Vitumim is nothing to do with the essence of the Choshen, but rather to the concept of the Mishpat. Therefore, Ein a Kohen Gadol Mechusar Begadim Ram. Therefore, the Kohen Gadol doesn't have the Or Vitumim. He is not lacking clothes, as Rashi says himself. And now, from the Yayin of the Torah, it says,
But why isn't it say Mechusar Begadim?
he's not Mechusar Begadim.
No, but in the Mishnah, the Gemara, they call Mechusar Begadim, no?
No, that's any case that could be lacking certain one of the clothes. It's not talking about the fact.
Without the word Vitumim, it was Mechusar Begadim.
Not Mechusar Begadim.
But you say Hutra. Islam says Hutra because,
So in other words, he was Mechusar Begadim, but we don't call him Mechusar Begadim.
Right.
What?
I mean, technically he's not.
We don't consider it.
We don't consider that he's Mechusar Begadim.
Yeah. Now, what's going on b'pnimis and yonim? So it explains in different svarim. It says that the chiluk ikri sheben amidash rishon and amidash sheni. What's the main difference in the first base of Mikdash, second base of Mikdash? Until there was an Indian of chasru hey begadim Mikdash sheni. There was 5 clothes lacking in the Mikdash sheni. As brought down in Yoma, it says, Lo haya kol kach b'madrigat gilui lakut shebe Mikdash atzma. It wasn't really so much in the revelation of godliness in the base of Mikdash itself. Tigam b'Mikdash sheni haya gilui b'chinat bina k'mo sheb'Mikdash rishon. The second level, there was a revelation of bina from above, just like it was in the first base of Mikdash. Ti'im she'ikar chiluk haya b'mshachat gilu b'chinat bina b'gvulin. But the main difference was how the revelation of Bina draw it down in a limited fashion. And the Beit Sheni lo haya yacholet lamshich b'chinat Bina ela legabei atzmo v'lo b'gvulin. So in the base of Bina Sheni, you can only draw it. One second. You can only draw down Bina for yourself, but not in the borders. According to Rashi, Ken hu inyan gam benogela choshen. It's also in relation to the choshen itself. The choshen itself was also in the Bayit Sheni, but the inyan of Mishpat, in which we judge Jewish people in the world, which is the way the person affects the meaning how the choshen affects the world. This concept is what is missing then. The main choshen itself was in the Bayit Sheni in a full extent, as it says in the Rambam, whatever.
But you wouldn't know how it affects the world.
What we're going to say now, the judgment is now, so.
That sounds like you're missing quite a lot.
Right. So it's so too in the Gullus right now. The sages say in Shar Mitzvahs, time of Mitzvahs, from Rav Chaim Vital. He says that Choshen has the same letters as Nachash, snake. Nachash HaKadmoini, the primordial snake. On the other hand, he explains the name of Ephraim from one of the Baalei HaToisvos. Or it says Shechoshen is the same gematria as Mashiach. So therefore, in the time of Galus, when a person comes before his sins, that the reason for the overpowering of the serpent skin on your godly soul Therefore, the concept of the nachash, the snake, comes revealed for the person. And the choshen is gematria Mashiach, is in helem, is in concealment. That means that the chinya of the choshen a person has, even in the time of galus, but now it's found in the world